make sure you're subscribed to Jerkrispy.
Anyways, what's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? Show some more days. Welcome back to another video. The darkest SpongeBob episode you probably missed. Not sponsored, but it is good. If y'all can tell. But make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Follow our social media is gonna pop on the screen. For all my new subscribers, what's up? Welcome back. Welcome to the channel. For all my current OG subscribers that been watching my stuff, what up? What up, fam? Make sure y'all tell a friend to a family that your boy Crispy is on his way. And we're on the road to 500. Let's get it.
When you think of creepy shows, you probably don't think of SpongeBob. And that's usually because most of the popular episodes in the show are not that scary. They're just the tip of the iceberg. The more you look into it, the darker it gets, with the final episode being the saddest and darkest one in SpongeBob history. Let's look at some of the darkest SpongeBob episodes, starting off with
The Jump.
Dumped shows what happens to an abandoned SpongeBob when he tries to replace Gary. After Gary starts to warm up to Patrick, SpongeBob begins to get jealous. At first, he can't accept that Gary would ever like Patrick and tries to get him to play tag. But when Gary refuses, SpongeBob loses it. He gets angry and forces Gary to make a choice, him or Patrick. And when Gary chooses to stick with Patrick, SpongeBob starts to beg. He begs Gary to come home, but Gary doesn't want to. And because of this, the episode goes from a simple story to something much darker. SpongeBob isn't just jealous, he's slowly experiencing real grief. First, he was in denial about Gary leaving him. Then he got angry at him, and just before, he was begging him to come home. And following this pattern, the next—
How this is the darkest episode? Like, wait, hold on, Spot. I know this is Spot. Hold on, this is Spot, right? How this is the darkest episode, Spot? At the end, all he wanted is something. Yes, Spot. How this is the darkest episode, and all he wanted to what's it called? Wanted to cook it off of Patrick and Patrick Shorts.
stage is where the episode takes a dark turn. Depression. Once he realizes Gary doesn't want to come back, he buys a new worm to make Gary jealous. He tries to gloat that he never needed a snail and that worms are more loyal pets. But when he realizes it's not working, he takes things a step further. He buys a new snail. SpongeBob isn't just trying to make Gary jealous anymore, he's trying to replace him altogether. In his mind, replacing Gary will bring things back to normal. And he shows that when he tries to play with the new snail like he would with Gary. But it doesn't work, and after a while, SpongeBob finally realizes that. It's at this point when he starts to crack, when all the emotions finally hit him at once. He realizes that Gary was different, and now feels that he's gone forever. Finally understanding his loss, he's on the verge of the fifth and final stage, acceptance. Patrick comes over and makes him feel worse about the situation, and at this point, SpongeBob is about to give up on Gary forever. But right before that happens, Gary comes back to SpongeBob after eating Patrick's cookie. It's hard to realize, but if Gary hadn't come back when he did, SpongeBob may have given up on him forever. And if he'd mentally done that, there was no way of going back. The story isn't just about abandonment, it's about the jealousy and anger SpongeBob feels that leads him to being depressed. And while that's a very dark subject, it's not really close to attempted murder.
Whoa. Attempted murder?
Out of the picture shows Mr. Krabs nearly kill Squidward for money. After no one wants to buy Squidward's art, Mr. Krabs wants to get rid of it. This is when SpongeBob comes in and explains how art can grow in value the longer you own it. Seeing money on the line, Mr. Krabs buys all of Squidward's pieces for just a few cents. He's ready for his money to triple when an appraiser reveals to Mr. Krabs that the pieces aren't actually worth anything, unless the artist was out of the picture. Without hesitation, Mr. Krabs sends Squidward to deliver to the Arctic, making sure he's gone. After sending him, he confidently tells the appraiser that Squidward's dead, without even the slightest bit of remorse. But when Squidward comes back, Mr. Krabs is forced to send him somewhere far worse. This happens 3 times, and each time, Squidward comes back unharmed. By the last time, he sends Squidward to Mars. This time, he's so sure that Squidward's not gonna make it that he invites the appraiser to the Krusty Krab. What makes their interaction particularly—
You know that's crazy? Why did the appraiser do, right? The person who's supposed to get the art. Why did he want him saying, the artist, it doesn't matter if they're alive. They gotta be dead. What? Why you gotta be dead? Why you can't be alive? What you trying to say? Like, the meaning of life is like all your values right now is really not important till you die? Like, I don't know, bro. I ain't watched it. This had to be later down on the line of season of SpongeBob. I ain't never watched this.
creepy is that both of them don't even try to pretend to be sad for Squidward's death. Before, they at least pretended that the death was a tragedy, but now they're making it clear that they only care about the money. Eventually, they come to a deal of $150,000, and just before it's done, Squidward comes back on a UFO. Realizing he's alive, the appraiser realizes the art is worthless and rips up the check. Seeing his money disappear, Krabs finally loses it and starts chasing Squidward with a mallet to make sure the job is done once and for all. He ends up chasing Squidward for 3 hours until they meet back at the Krusty Krab. Realizing what he has to do to survive, Squidward starts to break the paintings while SpongeBob holds the door shut. But this is where the appraiser starts to show his—
Yeah, ain't no way, bro. You telling me, bro, all I had to do is destroy the painting and then, hold on a sec. Ain't no way. SpongeBob, little skinny body ass,
things while SpongeBob holds—
it's holding the door. Yo, Mr. Krabs, you low-key kind of weak for this, bro. You telling me SpongeBob, skinny self, the skinny self, hold the door for you, and all you do is beating it in, not pushing it in, bro? Like, bro, he's like a cornflake, bro. Push it.
the door shut. But this is where the appraiser starts to show his true colors. While all this is happening, the appraiser's cheering on the violence, the paintings being broken. Even when Mr. Krabs wants it to stop, he wants it to keep going. He isn't interested in the art anymore, he's there for the chaos. The fight is all a game to him, and by the end of the episode, he uses Mr. Krabs and Squidward as an art piece. They were nothing more than tools for him to play with. This episode shows the consequences of greed. The lack of morality Mr. Krabs has ends up biting him in the back. But what happens when someone gets too greedy, when they put their wants over themselves? That's what happens in
Money Talk.
In Money Talks, Mr. Krabs becomes so obsessed with money that he sells his soul just to complete his wish.
Yeah, that's crazy.
After Mr. Krabs explains the importance of money to SpongeBob—
Hey man, make sure y'all never do that, bro. Even for money, bro. Because once you leave this earth, bro, I just can't go out details, but you know, never do what he just did, bro. That is not good to do it. You will not have money in all of this. You will not have money in the afterlife. Yeah, I mean, you might, you might have money, but not the way he going.
he sings a song about wanting to talk to it. At this point, he gets so desperate that he even tries different languages, but none of it works. In a vulnerable state, he declares he would do anything to talk to money. Hearing this, the Flying Dutchman shows up and gives him that very offer, in exchange for his soul. Without even the slightest bit of hesitation, Mr. Krabs accepts and signs that piece of paper. And after a while, his wish comes true. He can finally talk to money. He spends the next entire day talking to every dollar or cent he can come across. But it's at this point his obsession starts to take over. When he tries to talk to all his money, they demand they all want to be spent on different things. Mr. Krabs is hesitant at first, but eventually he listens to their demands, buying a bunch of stuff he doesn't need. Before, he was in control, but now it's the money that's controlling and ordering him. He eventually stops and wants a refund on his wish, but the Flying Dutchman refuses and wants his end of the deal. He wants Krabs' soul. He reaches to get it, but there's nothing there. Krabs' soul is already gone, and what we see next is truly terrifying. A line of ghosts, all there for Mr. Krabs' soul. He's done this before, and now his obsession is catching up to him. This wasn't a mistake, this was just another day for him. What makes it worse is that Mr. Krabs himself doesn't know where his soul is. He sold himself for the only thing he cares about, money. This episode shows the dangers of obsession, what happens when you put your wants over yourself. But obsession can still somehow get worse when you lose your morality. SpongeBob unknowingly helps Mr. Krabs turn innocent creatures into profit in Jellyfish Hunter. After SpongeBob introduced—
Oh yeah, nah, this episode was low-key kind of dark, cause like, bro, that scene that where SpongeBob went in the factory and saw that boy Mr. Krabs pedaling on a bike, bro, for that the squeezing the life out of a jellyfish. Yeah, that's crazy.
Jellyfish jelly on Krabby Patties. Everyone loves it. Mr.
I'm
Krabs—
not gonna hold you. I thought that was like a sausage biscuit first time watching this, bro. Like SpongeBob was like eating like a sausage biscuit at length.
on the other hand, sees this as a mutiny. He believes Krabby Patties shouldn't be eaten like that, but when a fish mentions that he's gonna eat there every day, Mr. Krabs realizes the money he can make and quickly abandons any formula beliefs he has. He realizes he needs more jelly, so he asks SpongeBob to go jellyfishing on his own time, but he doesn't call them jellyfish, he calls them money fish. He's already seeing them as money makers instead of sentient creatures. And when SpongeBob brings him a jellyfish, he emotionally manipulates him to get more. After a while, SpongeBob's caught a ton of jellyfish and handed them over to Mr. Krabs. Seeing this, the blue jellyfish decides to tell SpongeBob what's going on and he takes him to the operation. In a factory, Mr. Krabs is torturing thousands of jellyfish without the slightest bit of concern. He's using them for their jelly and then throwing them away. This factory wasn't built in a day. This has been going on in the background since SpongeBob got him that first jellyfish. When SpongeBob realizes what's going on, he confronts Mr. Krabs. Seeing him, Mr. Krabs pretends he's doing nothing wrong. He tries to convince SpongeBob that everything is fine. But when SpongeBob tries to break them out, he drops the act. He gets all cocky, saying his security is invincible because the door is voice activated. But during this, he accidentally activates the door and it swings open. There are now thousands of angry jellyfish that are going to attack Mr. Krabs. And instead of seeming remorseful or sorry for what he did, he tries to run away on his bike. Even when faced with death, he still isn't trying to apologize. This episode shows how far someone can go for money. What makes it darker is the lack of remorse Mr. Krabs had. Even when faced with certain injury, he didn't care to even say sorry. But it doesn't get any better in the next episode when we see Squidward pay the price for an addiction. In Skill Crane, Squidward gets addicted to gambling and loses everything.
You know, one thing about this meme, a funny meme about this thing. And before I even got into this video, and I saw they did the Super Bowl, the Patriots lost. I know the Patriots lost. It is what it is, It happens, Everybody, it happens. Why did it made the scene that Squidward was talking to the little kid, right, and said, "Oh, you didn't win." And he's like, "Yeah, cause you's a loser." I was like, "Damn." So the little kid that was like low key crazy.
Trying to win. After Mr. Krabs gets a claw machine for the Krusty Krab, he gives Squidward and SpongeBob a coin to play. Squidward isn't interested at first, but after almost winning, he's completely hooked. Thinking he's good at the game, he gloats to SpongeBob about being the best. But when SpongeBob wins on his first try, he gets jealous and plays again, and loses. He keeps losing, and eventually he runs out of change. And when that happens, Mr. Krabs offers to split his money so he can continue playing. But even with more tries, Squidward can't get a single win. To keep him hooked, Mr. Krabs pays them their wages early and he pays Squidward in coins. It's at this point the episode takes a dark turn when it becomes clear that Mr. Krabs is enabling Squidward. He does everything in his power to keep Squidward hooked to get every penny out of him. And that's exactly what happens. After going home, Squidward's so addicted that he takes his piggy bank and rushes back to the Krusty Krab. But despite putting everything on the line, even his house, he loses it all. By the next morning, Mr. Krabs now owns everything Squidward's ever had. And now that he's gotten what he wanted, Mr. Krabs doesn't pester him to play anymore. But despite losing all his money, Squidward's still more worried about the losses, like a true gambler. It's at this point he can't go back. He begs SpongeBob to teach him how to win, and when he does, he finally gets the rush of winning for the first time. He doesn't care that he lost everything, he only cares about the win. And when someone else fails, he mocks them for being a loser. He even tries to gloat to Mr. Krabs as he's counting all the money he's made off of him. With his head above the clouds, Squidward tries to use a real crane, and the damage he causes only shows what gambling's done to him. This episode shows the dangers of gambling and a huge ego. When you win, you need to remember what that win cost you, and because Squidward didn't, he paid the price. But the next time he got hurt wouldn't be his fault. Instead, it was because of someone else's greed.
Yeah.
Ink Lemonade shows what happens when Patrick becomes too greedy and emotionally and physically tortures Squidward. After Patrick sets up a lemonade stand, no one wants to buy his terrible lemonade. This is until Squidward gets scared, sprays some ink, and Patrick gives that ink to SpongeBob. SpongeBob ends up loving it, and soon, Patrick gets a lot of customers. With more people, he needs more lemonade, so to get some, he decides to scare Squidward like before. But he doesn't use the air horn like before, he gets a whole sea spider just to get more ink. But even after getting all that ink, he sees the huge line and realizes he didn't get enough. And this is where the episode takes a turn for the worse. To make sure he has enough for all his customers, Patrick sets up this creepy puppet show to constantly get more ink. The real issue here is the damage this does to Squidward, not just the physical, but also the mental. Patrick uses some of Squidward's biggest fears, and it really has a lasting effect on him. It gets to the point where Squidward can't even look at what's next. He's too afraid. And what's really off-putting is throughout all this, Patrick is sitting there, calmly going about his business. Here, he isn't an idiot like he is normally. He knows exactly what buttons to push to get more ink, and he does it with a smile on his face. This episode shows how greed can change the most innocent of people. Patrick's normally a bystander, but this time, he's taken things into his own hands and gone too far. Because of him, Squidward might never recover from the torture Patrick's put him through, but it's still not as bad as when you force someone to do something they don't really want to.
The Great Snail Race.
In the Great Snail Race, SpongeBob becomes obsessed with winning and neglects Gary's health. After Squidward gets a new snail for the upcoming race, SpongeBob thinks Gary has a new friend. But Squidward insults Gary and flaunts that his new snail is better than Gary and is going to win. This gets SpongeBob mad, and he becomes adamant on making Gary better. He becomes his coach.
No, this is low-key the most funniest episode. Not low-key. Well, yeah, low-key is the funniest episode. Because this is low-key kind of karma for Gary. If you want to go back to some episodes, I mean, I don't know if it's the same season, but I remember Gary tricked SpongeBob to get in the dirt and stuff because he didn't want to take a bath. So this low-key kind of karma for Gary, just to keep it real.
Forcing him to do all this training, but Gary couldn't care less about the upcoming race and goes to watch TV. SpongeBob is so focused on the race that he puts Gary on a training plan, ignoring what's good for him. And on the day of the race, Gary is exhausted. He's nowhere near ready to race. But SpongeBob's so obsessed with winning, he can't see that. In his mind, Gary is trained and ready to go. He's so confident that he even trash talks the competitors and hypes up Gary. But when the race starts, it becomes very obvious that Gary can't race. Instead of realizing that, he forces Gary to continue pushing and go for the win. Even the commentators realize that Gary's in bad shape, but SpongeBob can't tell. He only sees one thing, the finish line. But once Gary quite literally starts to break, it's then SpongeBob realizes he's been pushing too hard. This entire time, he only cared about beating Squidward, and because of that, Gary was forced to suffer. Not only was it physical, but also mental. SpongeBob forced him to compete in a race he didn't care about and made him train too hard. And by the end of the episode, Gary revealed that no matter what he said, SpongeBob didn't listen. He basically held him hostage and forced him to do what he wanted. This episode exposed the problem with obsession, but it was far worse than anything we've ever seen. SpongeBob was so ready to win, he couldn't see that he was hurting Gary. And while this was the first time Gary was seriously hurt, it wouldn't be the last. Once Bitten shows us how a simple lie nearly led to a crowd sacrificing Gary. In the episode, Gary bites Squidward after he yells at SpongeBob. Squidward gets pretty angry, but eventually, Patrick shows up and cries about him having mad snail disease. Squidward, for whatever reason,
I got a whole book about that. That's crazy. I got a whole book about the snail disease. I remember that, son. Yo, bro. Like, it was in, like not even kindergarten. It was like in pre-K, bro. I had the book, bro. Whole book and stuff. And I mean, me and my homeboy used to, like, read it to each other. Like, bro, we was young, bro. Chill out, bro. Chill out. Because y'all like to make things seem gay and shit like that. Nigga, I was young, nigga. I was not in this age, bro.
believes him and runs into the house to hide. But in the confusion, Gary ends up running away. Realizing Gary's on the loose, Patrick starts warning people about the snail and the disease. The people don't believe him at first, but when Gary bites them, they think they're also infected. The lie starts to spread, and to make things worse, the news starts reporting on it. Now, everyone's convinced it's a real disease, and soon, they think they're all infected. During all of this, SpongeBob somehow avoids the zombies and makes it to the Krusty Krab, the last place with survivors. Because of the zombies ravaging the city, everyone's hesitant to let him in. When they eventually do, Patrick makes things worse. He says that they might all be zombies and not know it yet. This causes chaos inside the restaurant. While everyone's freaking out, Gary shows
Yeah, I'm not gonna hug him. Patrick will be the last person I listen to on the earth, I promise you. Over some disease.
up and everyone's scared of him because they don't want the disease. They run away from him, but SpongeBob says he's not dangerous and tries to pet him. Just as he's doing that, Gary bites him. Thinking that SpongeBob is gonna be infected and Gary will bite everyone, the mob wants to take out Gary. This started as a dumb lie and almost led to a mob eliminating a snail. Had the doctor not spoken up when he did, Gary would have almost certainly been sacrificed. But this wouldn't be the last time Gary almost died. In fact, the time SpongeBob started neglecting him was the closest he ever came to death.
Damn.
A pal for Gary shows SpongeBob's ignorance, nearly leading to Gary's demise. In the episode, SpongeBob realizes that Gary is usually home alone and decides to get him a new friend. On his way home, he sees a lady selling pets and goes over to take a look. The lady warns him that these creatures are dangerous, but SpongeBob doesn't listen to her. She even mentions they're unstable around other pets, but SpongeBob doesn't care and takes the thing home. At first, it acts all cute and even Gary thinks it's nice. But when SpongeBob leaves the room, it becomes creepy and tries to attack Gary. Eventually, SpongeBob comes back with some food and the monster eats it. But because he thinks the monster is an angel, he blames Gary. This goes on for a while, and each time, Gary gets blamed for something the monster did. The scary part of all this is that the thing knows that it shouldn't show its real self to SpongeBob. It knows to manipulate him to turn on Gary. At night, the monster launches its full attack. It tries to kill Gary. Eventually, it gets too loud and SpongeBob finally wakes up from all the noise. He sees his house all broken and somehow comes to the conclusion that Gary's at fault. He eventually goes downstairs and sees a horrifying sight. The alien is trying to eat Gary. But here's the crazy part, instead of getting mad at the big freaky alien trying to eat his pet, he's mad at Gary for trying to hurt the creature. This is easily the most frustrating part of the episode. It's so obvious that Gary's the one in danger, but SpongeBob's too ignorant to realize that. And this has been building up for a while. He first ignored the lady who sold him the pet, and then ignored all the weird behavior. This wasn't him messing up, this was a pattern. After yelling at Gary for nearly dying, the monster puts Gary down and picks up SpongeBob. And even with his life hanging by a thread, he still thinks the monster is playing around. Luckily, just before he's about to get eaten, Gary ends up saving SpongeBob's life. The monster runs out, and while running away, SpongeBob yells at Gary for making the weird alien run away. There's really no reason why SpongeBob did this. He's just an ignorant idiot in this episode. All in all, this is probably the worst episode in the entire show, with how ignorant SpongeBob is and the danger he puts Gary in. Even when Gary saves his life multiple times, he yells at him for driving the new pet away. This episode was very infuriating, both for the audience and Gary, but it might have been the reason Gary domesticated SpongeBob in the next. Gary's got legs shows Gary finally get fed up and hits SpongeBob back. After realizing that Gary doesn't have legs, SpongeBob decides to give him his so he can finally do more things with him. It takes a while, but eventually, Gary adapts to his new legs and starts to walk like everyone else. SpongeBob's so proud of him that he flaunts him in front of everyone at the snail park. And after realizing that he only needs arms to be complete, SpongeBob decides to take his arms and give them to Gary. Now, Gary has full motion and can do anything. And to repay SpongeBob for all he's done for him, he pampers him. For the weekend, SpongeBob doesn't lift a finger. But after this nice break, he literally can't move. Because he didn't do anything, he can't move his arms or legs. But this is where it gets dark. Instead of helping SpongeBob,
Yeah, I remember this episode, and I hated this episode because whoever wrote this episode was pretty kind of dumb.
to fix his arms and returning life to normal, Gary decides to go to the Krusty Krab and do SpongeBob's job. Seeing a snail with arms and legs replacing his employee, Mr. Krabs decides to follow him home, and what he sees shocks him to his core. Inside, SpongeBob is now the pet and Gary's acting as the owner. Despite all SpongeBob did for Gary in this episode, he took over SpongeBob's life in a heartbeat. What's worse is this wasn't an accident. When Mr. Krabs tries to fix everything, Gary fights him. He makes it clear that he likes his new life and he's not ready to give that up, even if it means that SpongeBob will now be his pet. When Krabs beats him and he loses his arms and legs, he goes back to normal like he did nothing, like he didn't just try to domesticate his owner. Despite all SpongeBob did for Gary here, Gary couldn't care less and only looked to move up. He only wanted to become more powerful. This episode showed us the value of loyalty, and Gary's lack thereof. But while this seems like one of the darkest moments out there, it still gets worse when Mrs. Puff goes completely insane.
Yeah.
Demolition Doofus shows what happens to SpongeBob when Mrs. Puff loses her mind and wanted to end him. After SpongeBob lands Mrs. Puff in the hospital, she can only dream of one thing: revenge. She gets so mad that she attacks him just after waking up. But realizing that she can't get rid of him, she hatches a new plan. The doctor talks about how dangerous the Demolition Derby is, and to get revenge, Mrs. Puff decides to enroll SpongeBob in it. On the day of the Derby, Mrs. Puff is excited to see SpongeBob get ripped apart. Along with her, everyone else sorta agrees that SpongeBob is going to lose. And this becomes more clear when the fight actually starts and SpongeBob is going to lose. And this, along with her, everyone else sorta agrees that SpongeBob is...
Man, I would have turned around too. Be like, man, who is you? I would have shoved back. Like, hold on. Wait a minute. Just gonna push too hard. I see why everybody looking at her. Yeah, laughing too hard.
going to lose. And this becomes more clear when the fight actually starts and SpongeBob has no clue what he's doing. Every time he's on the verge of losing, Mrs. Puff's seen cheering, hoping her problems come to an end. But despite all the odds, SpongeBob eventually somehow comes out on top of all the other fighters. But just before he won, Mrs. Puff walked out of the stadium in anger. And while everyone's cheering on his victory, she pulls up in this huge truck, ready to finish SpongeBob once and for all. This is the buildup of all her anger. From the start of the episode, she's been very angry, and now she's making her dream come true. And while she was never able to finish him off, her total mental breakdown throughout the episode was definitely the darkest part. This was easily one of the worst things anyone's ever done in the show, but it's still not at the top. There's still a few darker moments, like the time a Krabby Patty led to a zombie invasion. Krabby Patty Creature Feature shows a zombie invasion where SpongeBob's the only hope. After hiring Sandy to make new types of Krabby Patties, Mr. Krabs starts selling them so people don't get bored of his food. But these new high-tech patties aren't just the normal food he used to sell. When people eat them, they transform into these weird Krabby Patty monsters. And whenever they come close to people, they force them to take a bite of them to make them transform, kinda like a zombie. With everyone in the restaurant eating the patties, there's now a ton of zombies, ready to take over the city. They start going up to uninfected people and converting them. Soon, everyone in the entire city is now a zombie, except 3 people: Perch Perkins, who immediately gets captured, SpongeBob, and Plankton. Realizing he needs to save the world, he runs to the chum bucket to get Plankton's help. Plankton doesn't believe him at first, but when they literally bust down his door, he starts to take things more seriously. The zombies eventually get to Karen, and soon after,
Alright,
Plankton.
now, ain't no way. How, she's a robot. How is a possibly... That's like impossible, bro. Like, that had to be the most unrealistic stuff that I ever saw in my life, bro. Like, you telling me she doesn't even have a mouth. All she had the lines as a mouth.
Things more seriously. The zombies eventually get to Karen.
Like this right here was kind of low key bullshit. Like, they should have just took Karen off this episode, like low key.
And soon after, Plankton. Now, SpongeBob's the only person in the entire city. He's everyone's last hope, but it doesn't seem like he'll do much. He's backed into a corner with nowhere to go. And just as he's about to become a zombie, he climbs the chum tower behind him to buy more time. But by some miracle, when he trips, he opens a packet and the chum falls into Patrick's mouth, converting him back. Realizing he has stacks of the cure on him, he makes enough holes to force feed everyone chum. And soon, everyone comes back to normal. But just before the episode ends, Patrick once again eats one of the patties and transforms into a zombie. Overall, this episode is a lot darker than you probably think. All of Bikini Bottom was moments away from being overrun by zombies. Had SpongeBob not accidentally discovered the cure, he was very well going to be infected. But what's darker than this? What's worse than a whole zombie invasion? Well, it was the time a character got stuck. Forever. The darkest SpongeBob episode ever shows Sandy canonically trapping Plankton forever. After Plankton tries to steal a Krabby Patty from a time capsule, Mr. Krabs traps him in and leaves him in there. The time capsule stays there for 2,000 years, and somehow, Plankton survives all that time on one Krabby Patty.
Yeah, that's great.
During the 2,000 years, he figured out the secret formula and plans on taking over the future. Once the time capsule finally opens, Plankton comes out to see a future he would have never expected. He's confused, so he eventually goes to the chum bucket to see the future Karen. Realizing what happened to him, Karen shows him around the new city. And seeing all that's changed in 2,000 years, Plankton gets fed up. The final straw comes when he realizes the secret formula is not a secret anymore. Realizing he has no power in the future, he wants to go home. To help him, Karen takes him to Sandy so she can take him to the present. But he doesn't see the Sandy he knows there. Instead, a kid version of her. He begs her to take him back to the present and she agrees. Just as they leave,
200,000 in a kid version of her. So this gotta be her great great, 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 great. So 2,000 and million and gazillion and kabillion and hellion and shit like that, basically.
Karen as Plankton 2.0 come out of the shadows. In just a second, Sandy and Plankton come back to the present, just before Plankton got stuck in the time capsule. But Plankton learned the secret formula when he was stuck, and to make sure things go back to the way they were, Sandy erases his memory. Not remembering what just happened, he walks down the road and sees the time capsule from the start of the episode, the same one he got trapped in. And not knowing what's about to happen, he once again tries to steal the formula and gets stuck. This reveals something horrifying. Plankton is stuck in a time loop. Every time, the same thing happens. He gets stuck in the time capsule, goes to the future, hates it, comes back to the present, loses his memory, and everything repeats. Plankton is stuck in this loop forever, and that's why Karen has Plankton 2.0 in the future. One day, Plankton just never came home and Karen had to move on. Plankton could have survived the 2,000 years like he did in the time capsule, and the only reason he's not there with her in the future is because he's forever stuck in a time loop. And all of this is happening because Sandy's letting it happen. All in all, Plankton is basically stuck forever. Because he keeps losing his memory, he'll never actually escape. And it's not really anyone's fault. No one actually remembers what happens, and so they're just playing their part. But as it seems, Plankton is canonically stuck in the
Yeah, that's kind of right. No. That's dark. That is low-key dark. Staying in a time loop all over again into like so on and so on. Oh no, that's dark. That is dark. But hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, follow our social media that pop on the screen. We're on the road to 500 and I'm out.